Hello everybody, my name is Novi and welcome back to the channel. For the first ever Match Review Monday on the channel, I wanted to take us back to 2022. A year that's not too far back because we might get pretty far back in this series. But I thought I'd take us back to 2022 in particular because it features a match that involves two names that are key parts in probably the most exciting AEW story going right now. Of course, recently, we all saw what happened to the BCC. But in 2022, at this time, it was still very young, with the group forming following a pair of slaps by William Regal onto Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson after their one-on-one that happened exactly 1 month to the day of the match we're covering in this video. Outside of everybody's feelings about the Blackpool Combat Club now, it was a very exciting group back then. Two top stars in wrestling joining forces, led by a fantastic on-screen character in William Regal, sounded tremendous. But the group just didn't feel complete with just those three guys. The veterans needed a young boy, someone they could train to be just like them. And luckily for them, they didn't have to go looking. That young man came to them. The Wheeler Yuta versus Jon Moxley match we're covering in this video today wasn't the first encounter between these two. They had wrestled 2 months prior in a standard match on Dynamite. That only happened because AEW had to replace Brian Kendrick. But what came out of that by the numbers match was a transformation for Wheeler Yuta, where he began moving away from the Best Friends, the group that had taken him in when he first joined AEW, and went towards the three men that founded the BCC, because in his words, he wanted to take his game to the next level, and he thought the BCC was the perfect group to help him do that. And well, to his credit, the match that we'll cover today from Rampage on April 6, 2022 proved that he was right in his thinking. This is Moxley versus Yuta, bleeding for Betterment. Before we jump into the review, make sure to like this video if you want to see Match Review Mondays continue, and also subscribe to the channel for live streams every Wednesday, new videos every Saturday, and videos like these every occasional Monday, where no matter what day you're choosing to watch the channel, we're always talking graps. Wheeler didn't waste any time getting to the action, so I won't either. He set the tone of this match as early as possible with an insane dive to the outside, where he just kind of flung himself into Mox with little regard to where his body might land as soon as Mox went over the guardrail. This extremely early risk almost forced the crowd to immediately get behind him, a support that only grows louder with the following crowd brawling segment. The two trade blows, it goes back and forth into the fans, but early on, Wheeler is mostly getting the better of Mox. You could say that was due to the early surprise dive, but I'd say it's because it's clear from the get-go that Wheeler Yuta is ready to go to war. He's determined to prove himself, and the fans in Boston are left no choice but to respect and support that. However, there's one man that doesn't give a shit about any of it. A man who's always ready to go to war in the ring, no matter the place and time. Jon Moxley. Yuta might have come out of the gate firing, catching Mox by surprise before the bell, but it's when those three dinks sound and things start to get official that Mox gets to work, smothering this babyface fire. It's an aspect of Mox's game that I think many people forget about, given his recent "I hate everything wrestling is nowadays" phase. But he's excellent at tearing down guys like Yuta, breaking them apart and giving them strong heel work to feed off of. That's truly on display here, and it's nice to go back to a time where he wasn't such a jiu-jitsu freak, a time where he'd rather watch Terry Funk matches than roll around on the mat with the War Master. On this night in particular, he's got that early AEW Mox fire that we're all desperate for these days, and he's using it to put on a clinic in this heat segment that lasts nearly the full first half of the match. There were plenty of times where Yuta would burst out with the occasional bit of fire. He might catch him with a few stray elbows, but Mox made sure to shut it down each and every time. That's of course the definitive way to build to a babyface comeback, but to me it also feels like a hierarchy at play, something I've talked about extensively on this channel. for very good reason, I'd say. With one of those very good reasons being this match right here. They tell you through the work in the ring alone that Wheeler Yuta is no Jon Moxley. He sure is striving to take a step closer to that level, and you feel it in this heat segment, but he's just not there yet. And he struggles to deal with Mox's high-powered offense. A problem arises though when Mox starts to take that as a sign of this kid being beneath him. He starts to get all kinds of nasty, taunting Yuta by basically begging him to hit him. It's something to keep in mind later for sure. But before we get to that, we have to touch on a major point in this match that defines it even after the bell rings. That being when Mox stomps Yuta's head into the edge of the steel steps. A spot that could have looked better if we're being nitpicky, but one that accomplishes the goal nonetheless. Because Yuta gets busted wide open, and the young man from Pennsylvania starts bleeding buckets all across the ring, which eventually turns into a full-on Crimson Mask, Cena style. Something that objectively, no matter what, will always look cool. Moxley plays a role in the blood gushing too, scratching and clawing at the cut on Yuta's head, even biting at it to chants of "you sick fuck," which is a Jon Moxley staple at this point. There then comes a moment where he almost starts to get annoyed at Wheeler Yuta when the blood starts affecting his vision. It comes across like Mox has dealt with blood in his eyes so many times that this kid not being able to makes him take him with even less seriousness, which is just another way to put Wheeler beneath him. Like Mox is basically telling him, "You're not as tough as me." He starts to throw Wheeler around and also starts swinging his arms with just a little bit more ease as he walks over to Yuta, hovering above the pool of blood he had created. Jon Moxley is now just doing this the way he's always done it. Yuta looks to be destroyed, and Mox is just kind of playing with his food. That change of attitude isn't something that Wheeler Yuta is going to take lightly though. This match is everything to him. He came in wanting to prove himself, to prove that he belongs in the BCC. So even with blood seeping into every pore on his face, dripping from the follicles of his hair down to the mat below, he's going to fight until he can't anymore. This incredible, fiery comeback begins just how you'd expect it to, with Yuta hitting Mox with an insane dive from the top turnbuckle to the timekeeper's table at ringside below. A leap that's going to win over even the biggest Mox fans in this Boston crowd. Yuta then gets a little bit cheeky, hitting Mox with his BCC stablemate's signature kicks to the head. Boston clocks this right away and gets even louder for Yuta. This match that we've recounted so far has been incredible, but it's systematically been setting up this closing stretch to take it even further beyond that. Moxley, still finding ways to get the better of Yuta, starts to give him everything he has. From bulldog chokes to death riders, nothing is being left in his back pocket. What he didn't expect though is for Wheeler Yuta, fueled by his own will and determination, to simply refuse to quit. Death Rider number 1, he eats it face down on the mat and kicks out at 2. Bulldog choke, endures it, and even after a few knees to the head, starts calling for more. Mox gives him what he's asking for, but Yuta finds a way to counter it, getting Mox into a few chokes of his own. But the veteran Moxley is going to find a way to slip out every single time. And when he does, he starts to nail Wheeler Yuta with some mean hammer and anvil elbows to the jaw. Mox then transitions that into a regal knee, then into a paradigm shift. Even this resilient, never quit version of Yuta that we're seeing today has to be done after all of that. Of course not though. He's still got fuel in the tank. Wheeler kicks out and Boston loses their mind. The fire of Wheeler Yuta seemingly won't ever be extinguished. Moxley then, after getting over the shock of what Wheeler just did, transitions into a rear naked choke. Now he's got Yuta all wrapped up. At the sight of this, Boston starts to practically beg for Yuta to find a way out. They desperately want to see him pull this off, but to their dismay, Yuta proves to still be human, and eventually fades out with Moxley's elbow under his chin. But it's clear, based on the fans' reactions to this loss, that the result is not something people are going to remember here. To them, this was all about what Wheeler Yuta just proved to be. And it's something that Mox immediately puts over when he sits in the corner and looks at him the way he does. This is not the man that he wrestled just a few short months before, and it clearly took him by surprise. Bryan Danielson and William Regal then join their BCC stablemate in the ring, and Mox gives them this look that says 1,000 words about how he now perceives Wheeler Yuta. But Regal, the animal that he is, stances in front of Yuta like he's gonna kick his ass. But when he sees Yuta call for more from him, even after all he had just went through, even in the state he was now in, he eases up just a little bit. Aside from the scowl, that's never going to leave him. But he then decides to extend his hand to Wheeler Yuta, showing him that he now has his respect, and that Yuta now has a place alongside him, Danielson, and Moxley in the Blackpool Combat Club. And just to confirm things, Wheeler paints the letters BCC on his chest with his own blood, which is truly the pure essence of what the BCC was always meant to be. A faction that, while not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, especially later into its existence, but one that I'll always look back on fondly because of moments like this one. Wheeler Yuta, the star of this match without a doubt, unfortunately hasn't been the relevant player throughout the last few years that we all thought he'd be following this match. But now, following the big BCC breakup that happened at All Out, he seems primed to become one of the main centerpieces of AEW as a whole to close out 2024 at the very least, which is something that I'm absolutely ecstatic to see, especially as a firm believer of the level of star I think he can become one day, a belief that in a lot of ways exists because of this match. Rampage is a show with a rich history, and it might even be going away soon. There's plenty of great matches you can look back to on this show, plenty of great promos and moments too, but the one thing I'll always remember before anything else is Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta, because this is the kind of match that suits my tastes perfectly. The kind of moment in time I hope to get out of my professional wrestling. The kind of magic only this great sport can make. I have this match at a full 5 stars in my book. With that, that's going to do it for the video, everybody. I hope you all have enjoyed the first installment of Match Review Mondays on the channel. I'm planning on making these videos whenever a match compels me to do so, so expect these every so often. I'm planning and I'm going to be trying to do it bi-weekly. But if you want to see even more of them, make sure to leave a like on this video, and while you're down there, subscribe to the channel, because as you all know, we're always talking graps. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been Novi. Much love to each and every one of you. Peace.